Thank you, Chair. First, an update on COVID-19 across the university. Although the case numbers across the islands have skyrocketed with the Delta variant, and we have seen our hospital capacity stressed to the maximum, in some cases beyond as a result of COVID-19 patients, we have settled into a fairly healthy semester here across the University of Hawaii system. Our case counts are moderate, higher than last year, but right now we're at 42 in total since the beginning of the semester. We report all known cases involving any member of our campus community. And none of these cases at this point, knock on wood, are believed to be the result of spread on one of our campuses. We are more online than we had hoped this semester with our instructional programs, but our campuses are definitely much livelier than they were last year at this time, and we're hoping to be even more present on our campuses in the spring. Most of our efforts of late have been around implementing testing protocols, urging vaccination, updating our guidance, practices, and systems to match what has become a pretty rapidly changing overlay of county, state, and federal mandates around vaccination and testing. We are also in discussion with our unions regarding plans for the spring when we expect to be enforcing our vaccination mandates now that the Pfizer vaccine is fully authorized by the FDA and Moderna is expected to be not far behind. Last month, I had noted the amazing work of Vice President Yoshimi and his team working with leaders and staff from across the system and in other agencies on our systems and information flows. Today, I'd just like to call out for special praise today our student resident hall staff at UH Manoa and UH Hilo. They have risen to every challenge to accommodate our students and keep them safe since this pandemic started about 18 months ago. And they've been working through conditions none of us could have expected. And some of our students really have no other safe place to live while they pursue their dreams that can only be achieved through higher education. Quick update on enrollment. Our census date is next Friday. That's when we freeze our numbers for the fall for reporting purposes. We'll provide a full enrollment report to the Board of Regents in November. But the closer we get to census, the more stable the numbers are from day to day. So just quickly, as of this morning, both UH Manoa and UH Hilo are up 6% at Manoa and 2.5% at UH Hilo, relative to the same point in the semester last fall. For Manoa, this will be the third fall out of the last four with enrollment increases. Expected headcount enrollment at Manoa over 19,000 would be our highest since 2014. For UH Hilo, this will be the first increase since fall of 2012. So we hope this year marks the turning of the corner on 8 years of enrollment decreases there. UH West Oahu and the community colleges as a system are both down, currently 4.8% and 3.4% respectively. UH West Oahu has been up 2 of the last 4 years and is running at a fairly stable enrollment of about 3,000. While the community college system has continued to see declines in credit headcount enrollment, what we're seeing is that much more of its work to support economic revitalization and workforce development is being achieved through non-credit education and training. And this work is often supported by federal, state, county, and philanthropic funding. We're looking at how to better capture data and report on this important aspect of the community college mission. And we hope to have something new and improved for you in November. A few regents asked for updates on the Clarence T.C. Ching Field improvements. At this time, the improvements necessary to allow Ching Field to serve as the home stadium for Warrior football is 98% complete. The biggest issue is completing the installation of the air handling unit for the 3rd floor permanent booths. Those are the media and coaches booths by the end of the month. Other outstanding items are things, pretty standard punch list items like installing handrails beneath the Makai structure, sinks in the concession rooms that we aren't using, awaiting delivery of an ice machine, and so forth. Both city and state officials are well aware of our requests, as well as those coming in from the public, families, fans, the band, visiting teams, and others, to allow at least some level of attendance with strong mitigation measures. Right now, we are the only FBS football team in the country to have a no fan policy. Our band is fully vaccinated, practicing safely and ready to go. Interestingly, we think we are the only Division I marching band in the country that is actually playing their instruments, including the wind instruments, through performance masks. So we are continuing to hope that the case numbers go down, that we see relief from the severe pressures on our hospital capacity that have been created by unvaccinated people being infected and severely sickened by COVID-19. But until that happens, we will adhere to the county and state mandates on attendance at our sporting events. There's been a lot going on around Maunakea stewardship, if you've been following the news over the past week or four. So let me kind of tie it all together for you. And I want to thank the board for continuing to ask questions and express urgency through your resolutions, directing the administration to do more and do it faster. We just released publicly the draft of the next master plan, and we are seeking public comments. Those can be provided online, and we're also hosting a virtual public meeting on October 6th to gather comments orally. So the Maunakea Master Plan guides land use decisions on the UH managed lands. The existing master plan was adopted in 2000 when the university accepted the very strong criticisms and the audit of 1998 and began our new approach to stewardship. The draft of the new master plan, Aoi Kaleo, or Listen to the Voice, will serve as our framework for aligning land use decisions, management actions, and educational programs to create better balance among cultural, environmental, scientific, and recreational interests, and to broaden Native Hawaiian and community participation in planning and programming. Key highlights of the new draft master plan include fortification of UH's commitment of no more than 9 operating astronomy facilities at the Maunakea Summit by December 31st, 2033, providing stronger mechanisms to seek and consider input from the Native Hawaiian community and the broader community in decision-making, support for the UH Hilo Educational Telescope at Halepohaku, the mid-level facility, establishing a UH Hilo-led multidisciplinary field station at Halepohaku to support field studies and learning experiences across disciplines, from environmental to anthropological and cultural, and maintaining the Maunakea Observatory's status as the world leaders in astronomy. We plan to submit a final version of this master plan to the Board of Regents for approval early in 2022. At the same time, the comprehensive management plan is being updated, and this complements the master plan. Activities like support for traditional and customary practices, hunting and gathering, recreational activities are addressed in the comprehensive management plan, which also includes more detailed subplans for management of natural and cultural resources, as well as public access and telescope decommissioning. An early draft of the comprehensive management plan update will be available for internal review later this calendar year. We are actively looking at how we can accelerate all this work toward adoption of the new master plan and the updated comprehensive management plan, but we know and will not, we cannot and will not shortcut the processes for full public review and consideration of the input received. We're also making substantial and visible progress on decommissioning. As we have noted in the past, the approval processes for removing telescope and restoring the site are actually very similar to the requirements for building a new observatory. We have 2 decommissioning activities actively underway. The Caltech Submillimeter Observatory, or CSO, the draft environmental assessment for that work was released for public comment last week, and our conservation district use application for the work has been submitted to DLNR. Virtual public meetings are scheduled for the end of this month, and the current plan is to start physical deconstruction in the middle of next year. Similarly, the draft environmental assessment for decommissioning Hokukea, the UH Hilo Educational Telescope at the summit, was also released for public comment, and a virtual public meeting to review that draft EA is scheduled for September 22nd. We have a parallel project underway to install a new UH Hilo Educational Telescope on already developed land at Halepohaku. And that's noted in the master plan, as I mentioned. That site will be more accessible to students, and it contributes to the new master plan vision for a new inclusive mid-level facility. We will have public meetings to gather input on this decommissioning as well, and hope to start deconstruction next year. We are deeply appreciative of the legislative support for the decommissioning of Hokukea, and we received a $900,000 CIP appropriation for that work from the most recent legislative session. Lastly, let me mention the work we've been doing on improving our educational programs and advancing our commitment to education and culture on the Mauna. With leadership from Imiloa, and this is consistent with the reorganization that you approved to create the new Center for Maunakea Stewardship, we have installed a new exhibit at the Visitor Information Station, and this one is on the Maunakea Adze Quarry. The Maunakea Adze Quarry is actually a large complex of archaeological sites on the south slope of Mauna Kea in the Natural Area Reserve, or NAR area. This is believed to be the largest such rock quarry in the world, and it was used by pre-contact Hawaiians to both obtain basalt unique to Mauna Kea and to make stone tools. With Imiloa leadership, we're also doing well in progress on new training materials. We'll have in-person education for employees of UH and the observatories who spend extensive time on the mountain. And we're looking at train-the-trainer models for the future. This is for the intensive training for people who are regulars. And we are also developing new and more culturally aware online training for more casual visitors to the Mauna. These new resources will be available this calendar year. I believe it is incredibly clear that we are not the same UH that received that scathing audit in 1998. All this work I've mentioned builds on those who began to shift our approach and responsibility over 20 years ago as we developed the initial master plan, or the new master plan then in 2000, and established the Office of Mauna Kea Management, the Mauna Kea Management Board, Kahuku Mauna, the Ranger Program, the Comprehensive Management Plan and subplans in 2009, 2010. And then we've continued with the work I've just described, supported and driven by the current Board of Regents and your resolutions. And if you haven't seen the editorial in the Star Advertiser just this morning, I'd encourage you to take a look. They urge that Hawaii continue to support world-class astronomy on Mauna Kea, and they opine that the university is still the most logical entity to direct astronomy on Mauna Kea. Last month, I provided you information about the legislative briefings that had been underway. Initially, one with the Higher Education and Ways and Means Committee, and then a second hearing with the Senate Special Committee on Procurement, both of these activities with the State Senate. And this work has continued. In fact, for many of us, it feels like the legislature is still in session. So prior to the August 9th committee, we provided pretty substantial information from both UH and RCUH. And at that August 9th briefing, which I summarized with you, we talked about procurement for the remodeling of the Clarence T.C. Ching Athletic Complex. We talked about the UH Cancer Early Phase Clinical Trials Program. That was about 2.5 hours, but the committees were unable to complete the agenda. So they scheduled a follow-up hearing. We also received requests for more information. This time we got questions to the UH administration, to RCUH, and directly to the Board of Regents on a variety of topics, including the Ching Field construction project and the contracting methodology, many questions about the executive master's programs at Scheidler, which are administered through RCUH and have been since 1995 by a directive of then President Mortimer. Many questions to RCUH about their faculty hiring and dual employment programs, a question to the board about tuition setting. We responded to those, and we got follow-up questions before the next meeting, again on the Clarence T.C. Ching Complex, on the rate and number of hours taught per week for UH employees who were also employed through RCUH. Some questions about workload and faculty workload. We provided additional response to that. And then we had another briefing on August 30th on basically the same topics. That went on for a little over 3 hours. We didn't quite make it to the end of the agenda, so they announced there would be another hearing. That has not yet been scheduled, but we did get another set of follow-up questions to UH and RCUH, basically about the same, more details about the same projects, the athletics complex, the Cancer Center Early Clinical Trials Facility, and going into RCUH revolving accounts, UH Auxiliary Enterprises accounts, and more about the executive programs, and also some questions about general student enrollment, service orders from UH to RCUH, other RCUH related questions, and the approach that we take to executing federal projects through RCUH. So at this time, we've received 10 requests, 4 to the UH president, 2 to the Board of Regents chair, 4 to the RCUH executive director. We've provided over 900 pages of material. We still have more to respond to in the latest round of questions. We've had almost 6 hours of briefings, and we have at least one more coming. So it's been a busy time for us on top of everything else that we're dealing with, but we will continue to be as responsive as we can to these Senate inquiries. Lastly, I want to mention our commitment to become a model Indigenous serving university and some of the support we received from the federal government just over the past weeks. We're particularly grateful for that federal support given the current financial conditions in Hawaii, which are of course severely impacting our UH state general funding budget. And our congressional delegation has ardently supported federal resources for programs that serve Native Hawaiians and others from a wide variety of agencies as well. When I started drafting this report, I wanted to share an amazing grant that was awarded earlier to Keawe Kaholakula and Neil Palafox at JABSOM. It's a $15 million 5-year competitive grant to establish the Center for Pacific Innovations, Knowledge, and Opportunities, or PICO, focused on improving the health and well-being of Indigenous Pacific people, Native Hawaiians, other Pacific Islanders, and Filipinos. These are communities that comprise about 40% of the state's population and all have disproportionately higher rates of physical ailments and mental health conditions compared to Caucasians and Asians in Hawaii. PICO is a partnership between UH Manoa, HPU, Chaminade, and a statewide network of community-based organizations. And they will be taking a team science approach to transforming the current research paradigms to accelerate clinical and translational research to improve Indigenous and Pacific people health. But then we kept getting more good news. 2 days ago, the Department of Education, the US Department of Education, announced $9.3 million in competitive awards to 13 Native Hawaiian serving programs at UH. These are funds from the American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA, but they were competitively awarded, and they were part of more than $28 million in federal funding to a total of 35 Native Hawaiian education programs across the state. We'll be releasing details later this morning, I believe, but these grants were awarded to UH Manoa, UH Hilo, UH West Oahu, and Honolulu, Windward, and Kauai community colleges. And lastly, let me just mention 3 other UH projects that give you a sense of the breadth of this work. We received a total of more than 1.6 million in grants this week to support food and agricultural sciences from yet another federal agency. And this is, again, work for underrepresented students, including, but not limited to Native Hawaiians. Hawaii One Ag at CTAR is about $1 million to develop new pathways in agricultural education and future career growth. Go Farm Hawaii, also in CTAR at UH Manoa, received $450,000 for training new farmers and growing agribusinesses in Hawaii. And the UH West Oahu wins the acronym, although PICO is pretty darn good, with the Upbeat project. It's just over $200,000 for undergraduate pathways bridging excellence in agriculture and tradition. And that's led by the UH West Oahu Sustainable Community Foods Program. So again, our deepest gratitude to our congressional delegation. Senator Schatz is particularly well positioned with his committee assignments, but all of them are supporting a continued focus on ensuring that we can compete fairly for resources that help us serve the people of Hawaii and advance our mission.